Perhaps one of Dürer's best-known pieces is this. This is Night, Death, and the Devil. Again, popular as a morality lesson. If you look clear down at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the date, 1513, and the signature, the AD, that is characteristic of Albrecht Dürer. The image is a morality lesson. It's an allegory for the Christian life. The knight, of course, represents the Christian. The knight is on a journey, and if you look clear at the top of the engraving, you will see a castle in the background. That castle represents heaven, and it is the knight's final destination. However, if you look behind the knight, you'll see that death is on your left behind the knight. You can recognize him by his withered away nose and by the hourglass in his hand. Death is riding an emaciated horse, which is why when you look down there are 4 more hooves in the background. And behind the knight is the strange horned creature with hooved feet, who is the devil. That is actually a Reformation 1500s vision of what the devil looks like. Now, the morality lesson here is that the knight is on his way to heaven. He's faithful, as symbolized by the dog under his horse. That represents faithfulness. The knight, even though he's being accosted by death and the devil, does not get distracted. He does not look to the side. His focus is still firmly on what's in front of him. His focus is still on his goal of heaven. Death tries to remind him and frighten him with the hourglass, and if you look in front of the horse's hooves, you will also see a skull down there. Death is trying to frighten him with those symbols of death, trying to scare him into doing something, and the knight simply ignores him. And of course the knight truly ignores the devil because the devil is behind him, the place where, in Dürer's engraving, the devil should always be, behind a good Christian. Now, this piece sells incredibly well because, again, he's selling to a Protestant audience. He's selling to an audience that doesn't necessarily want pictures for church, pictures for saints. Instead, these people want morality lessons and Bible stories, specifically. Now, again, Dürer is sympathetic to the Protestants. He doesn't make a point of it because he's interested in selling on whoever will buy his paintings or his reproducible artwork. So he makes copies of these engravings, like 500 prints of this engraving. He wants to sell all 500, and he doesn't care if the people who buy them are ultimately Protestant or Catholic. However, you can see signs of it. For example, this is Dürer's painting of the 4 apostles. And if you notice, Dürer has done something subtle, but something that is a really big whoop. Look at the 2 dudes on your left-hand side over there. The 2 dudes on your left, you've got Peter and John. Peter, the guy with the keys. You can see the keys sticking up in his hands. Peter's in the back. John is in front of him, closer to the viewer, more easily viewed. That's like a total slam on the Catholic view of things because, of course, Peter was supposed to be the first pope. So by putting Peter in the back and putting John in front of him, Dürer's declaring his loyalty. He's actually favoring the Protestants here through this artistic image. Dürer also does non-religious artworks. Dürer loves the natural world, and he's fascinated with animals, of all things. Dürer actually creates a lot of images of animals, and funny enough, they sell. The Protestants don't follow the chain of being the same way anymore. They are interested in the ideas of humanism. They're interested in the idea that God created all things, and therefore all creatures can teach us. All creatures are interesting because all creatures were created by God. So there is an interest in these images. They're not supposed to go in the church. They're supposed to go in your house. They're a private collection. And people find beauty in these natural animals. Dürer shows a great deal of sensitivity and talent in doing the animals. If you look at the bunny up on your upper left, that rabbit is actually a beautiful hand-painted piece. The dog, the greyhound in the central image, is a sketch, and what I want you to notice there is the liveliness. It's very muchly interested, posed as if it's listening to something. There is a degree of lifelikeness, of personableness, of personality in this sketch that you don't see in many other works. And then at the bottom right is one of Dürer's best known and most impressive pieces on animals. It's a rhinoceros. Dürer, for the record, never sees a rhinoceros. However, he is a guy who did see one. describe the rhinoceros in incredible detail. And for someone who's never seen a rhinoceros, that's pretty darn good. Dürer is interested in expanding his horizons, in learning, and he has an audience who is hungry for not just traditional religious pictures, but for pictures with symbolism and moral lessons, and pictures that reflect the natural world. Now, Dürer is a great example of a reproducible art person who favors Protestantism, but there are lots of Catholic artists working in these regions as well. For example, there is a gentleman named Matthias Grunwald. Well, let me take that back. Actually, the poor guy's name is not Matthias Grunwald. We don't know who he is. He's recorded as Master Mathis or Mathis the Painter. And somehow, in an art textbook, Master Mathis or Mathis the Painter gets conflated. He gets mixed up or combined with another artist entirely called Matthias Grunwald. From that textbook onward, everybody combines the two of them. We know now that the guy whose artwork I'm about to show you is not technically Matthias Grunwald, but that's how he has been recorded for hundreds of years, and that's how we know the guy. Now, Grunwald actually is a Catholic artist. He's working his way through the HRE, through the Holy Roman Empire, and he has really bad luck. Grunwald happens to come into a town about the same time there's a peasant revolt. Now, let me explain what's going on here with the peasant revolt. Peasant revolts break out across Germany and other parts of Europe thanks to the Protestant Reformation. Huh? Wait. This whole Protestant Reformation thing, they teach that God gave man skills, God gave man intellect, God gave man abilities, and it is man's duty, it is his job to take advantage of the gifts God has given him. You need to improve yourself. You don't report to someone above you. Someone above you can't tell you who you're supposed to be, just like the Pope can't order the church around. Well, that all sounds great and progressive until you're a landowner with a bunch of farming serfs or peasants on your land. They all decide that they're going to be Protestant and grow up to be merchants, and they rebel. Protestantism causes a whole buttload of trouble for landowners and landlords. Grunwald rolls into a town right as one of these uprisings of the peasants against their landlord is happening, and because Grunwald's the new guy in town, everybody blames him. Oh, great. Grunwald has to flee and to keep from getting killed, and Grunwald ends up in a small town called Eisenheim. Now, I'll show you how to spell that in a minute. Hang on. If there's a bright center to the world, Eisenheim is one of the places furthest from it. It's a small town centered on mining in the middle of a swamp where crops don't grow very well. In fact, the main produce, the main crop of Eisenheim is rye grain. Now, there's something you need to know about rye grain. Rye grain tastes good, fine, you've had rye bread before, but rye grain tends to have a certain blight on it. That blight, that disease, is called ergot. Ergot is an interesting little chemical that when ingested is a vasoconstrictor. Now, for those of you who aren't medical people, that means it makes your blood vessels shrink down. Ergotism, because of the fact that it makes your blood vessels shrink down and has other impacts on the body, causes convulsions, hallucinations, rupturing of capillaries, and it can cause gangrene-like symptoms in the hands and feet where your fingers, toes, and ultimately your hands and feet fall off. Because Eisenheim grows predominantly rye grain in the swamp, guess what's on their rye grain? Yeah, ergot. Oh, goody. By the way, side note, unrelated, ergot is still in use today in minuscule quantities. If you've ever taken migraine medication, it usually contains ergot because it helps to control the flow of blood through the blood vessels. Now, not only does Eisenheim have problems with ergotism, people are dying from this disease, but with the swamp and the heat, they also have an outbreak of plague. By the time Grunwald arrives, all of these lovely diseases are piling up, and there are more people in the local hospital, in the local monastery which cares for them, than the monks know what to do with. The monks hire Grunwald to paint them an altarpiece, an image for the front of their church that will inspire the sick and the dying, remind them of the sympathy of God for their condition, and inspire them with the power of God. What Matthias Grunwald creates is the Eisenheim altarpiece. Now, the Eisenheim altarpiece is an incredibly complex thing. I'll show you more of how it works in just a second here. What I want you to see here, you're looking at the front piece of it. The Eisenheim altarpiece, if you look down the center, you'll see a line down the center. This is actually a folding altarpiece. There are numerous pictures included in this altarpiece. It can be folded open or closed to display different pictures for different occasions and different holidays. Please notice as well, down at the bottom right-hand side, I have the dimensions of this thing. It's big. No, it's really big. The Eisenheim altarpiece, the central panels, just those middle pieces right in the middle where you see the crucifixion, those panels are 9 feet tall and over 10 feet wide, okay? They are gigundous. Let me show you. Nowadays, instead of opening and closing the Eisenheim altarpiece on hinges, folding and unfolding, people have actually taken it apart. They've actually separated the pieces out so that you can view all of the pieces at once when you go visit the monastery church. Here's the Eisenheim altarpiece separated out so you can see the 4 different layers, all right? What I actually want you to see is the size of the paintings compared to the size of the people, all right? I want you to get scale. This thing is big. You can see 3 distinct layers here. In the front, you have the picture I just showed you, the crucifixion picture with the 2 guys on the sides, and then underneath the cabinet. Behind that, you can glimpse a second picture in the background, and behind that, you can pick out something that looks like a carved structure, which is what it is. All right, let's go one layer at a time here.